Happy New Year, and this is our first story for 2026. Santino's story and his struggles to give his family safety in an unforgiving world. The darkness that fell. It was a typical day in the city of Manila, with the usual cacophony of horns, chatter, and the smell of street food wafting through the air as vendors yelled out their product to the numbers that were now starting to wake up. But as the sun began to rise, casting a golden glow over the crowded streets, a sense of unease settled over the city. It started with small, seemingly insignificant incidents. A mugged tourist, a carjacking, a mysterious illness reported in a far-off barangay. As the night wore on, the reports of strange happenings grew more frequent and more disturbing. Marits or nosy aunties spoke in hushed tones of creatures that lurched through the streets, their eyes vacant, their skin gray and hardening with strange growths. The government announced emergency measures, but the streets remained chaotic, with no clear explanation for the sudden outbreak. It felt like the start of COVID once more as people started to stock up and prepared for a lockdown to happen once more. For Santino, a hard-working Grab driver with a young daughter to provide for, the news was a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked in the city. His jeepney, his livelihood, had been taken from him when the gas prices went up and eventually was impossible to maintain it. Especially when the requirements and laws against it had grew in number and complexity just a few years ago. Leaving him with a sense of desperation and a dwindling sense of security, he went to the gig industry in order to keep his family's finances afloat. As he navigated this new reality, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of trouble, he couldn't shake the feeling that the world was spinning out of control. Little did he know, the darkness that had fallen over the city was only just beginning to manifest its full horror. The day began as it always did, with Santino going out to work. He delivered food from fast food joints and fancy restaurants, door to door, climbing stairs and waiting in long lines. To give his daughter a better life, he pushed past exhaustion, working past midnight for extra pay, even serving as a motorcycle taxi when no tricycle drivers could be found. He returned home at dawn, body aching, soul worn thin. He found his pride and joy, Elsa, already asleep after tidying their small room. A knot of regret tightened in his chest, the familiar pang of feeling he was a disappointment of a father. Gently, he patted her head and pulled the blanket up to her chin against the night's chill. Then he sank into his corner of the bed and surrendered to sleep. The next morning, Elsa woke first. Quietly, she placed her own blanket over her father's sleeping form. He stirred but did not wake, lost in a deep, exhausted slumber where dreams were a luxury he couldn't afford. As Elsa moved with efficient grace, ironing her uniform, packing her bag, heating water for her bath, Santino slept on. Yet even in sleep, he felt a familiar swell of pride. Her routine was the rhythm of his life, her quiet responsibility a balm to his weariness. Lolo Jose was already up, returning from the bakery with warm pan de sal and his personal favorite, Spanish bread. The sweet, fluffy scent filled the small home. Lola was at the stove, heating water for instant coffee with a practiced hand, adding just the right amount of sugar he liked. They watched their granddaughter, hearts full. She was a child who ironed her own dress, dried her own hair, and poured her own bathwater, fighting the morning chill with determined warmth. "Papa, I'm ready." Elsa appeared in the doorway, uniform crisp, hair in a perfect ponytail, eyes bright. She shook him gently awake. Santino mustered a smile. "Okay," he said, the shortened term of endearment heavy with sleep. "We won't be late." He shuffled to the living room. Seeing her waiting, he hurried. He split a pan de sal, stuffed it with a freshly cooked egg and took a bite. The simple warmth, the soft bread, the hot egg, was a small miracle. It seeped into him, pushing back the night's fatigue. Elsa joined them at the table. "Liver spread next time," Lolo Jose mused between bites. "It's cheaper." "No cooking." "I don't want to. I hate the taste," Lola replied instantly, a decades-old debate reignited. "Tay, chicken spread nalang kung ganyan," Santino mediated gently, focused on his meal. "Papa, let's hurry," Elsa urged, eager for school. Then her head tilted at a sound from the street, the distinct call of the Tejo vendor. Her eyes flickered with a longing she immediately tried to hide, a battle between responsibility and childhood want. Santino saw it. Without a word, he fetched a 20-peso coin and a large mug. "For the vendor to fill," he said. Her restraint melted into a radiant smile. She threw her arms around him in a quick, tight hug before darting out the door, the mug clutched in her hands. "Ingat ka," her grandmother called after her. They shared a look, a silent communion of joy in being able to provide this one small sweetness. In the cold morning it felt like a victory. especially when the holidays were close. After a few more days, life continued on and eventually he was tired but eager to start the day. As he was excited to get the larger fees but vowed to keep his promise to be back for the final countdown of the year 2025. Chapter 1. Delivery Log, December 31st. The last delivery of the year glowed ominously in Santino's insulated bag. It was a bulk order from a new trendy bubble tea shop in BGC, 20 large Galaxy Blue Milks teas, destined for the corporate office of a major fast food franchisor. The drinks were a deep, synthetic azure, shimmering with edible glitter. The shop had paid a triple-rate holiday fee. For the party, they said. Santino remembered the order because the shop manager had looked stressed. The color and shipment was delayed from the main supplier, she'd muttered, checking a label written in Chinese. This better not stain their mouths. As he weaved through the pre-New Year's traffic, the streets were a joyful chaos. Vendors sold paputok firecrackers on every corner. The smell of roasting pig lechon filled the air. He passed a Jollibee, its windows plastered with ads for a new midnight surprise joy meal, featuring a blue burger and purple fries. Limited time offer, the sign screamed. His phone buzzed. A message from the family group chat. A photo from Elsa, her and Lolo Jose holding up the freshly bought pandesal, thumbs up. The caption, "Waiting for you, Papa." Ingat. He smiled, the knot in his shoulders loosening for a second. This run would cover her school supplies for the next month. He accelerated. The corporate office was nearly empty when he arrived, a skeleton crew finishing the year. A tired-looking secretary signed for the drinks. For the big brainstorming session, she said sarcastically, gesturing to a conference room where a few executives and marketing people were gathered. Next year's big campaign. Taste the future. Santino glanced inside. On a large screen was a mock-up ad, a child's hand reaching for a burger that was an unnatural, vibrant violet. He felt a vague unease. The color was wrong. It was the same wrong blue as the drinks in his bag. He pushed the thought away. It was just food coloring. He completed the delivery, the app chiming a significant sum into his account. For Elsa, he thought. He bought a small extra lechon pack from a street vendor on the way home. A real treat. The vendor's sauce was a familiar, reassuring brown, not blue. Chapter 2. The First Firework. Midnight. The world erupted in light and sound. From their rooftop, Santino held Elsa on his shoulders as she squealed, her small hands pointing at the starbursts of red, green, and gold over Manila. "Happy New Year, Papa," she yelled over the explosion as she even tried to jump. "Happy New Year, Nak." He whispered into the roaring sky, his heart full. Then, a different kind of explosion, closer, ground level. A car alarm, then a scream, sharp and sudden, swallowed almost instantly by the boom of a Judas belch. Santino frowned, peering over the roof's edge. Down the narrow street, he saw shadows scrambling. A fight, maybe. New Year's revelry could turn ugly. But something felt off. The shadows moved wrong. One figure lurched with a speed that was more than drunkenness. It collided with another and they went down. Not a fight. A pounce. A cold finger traced Santino's spine. His delivery driver's mind, trained to assess streets for danger, went on high alert. "Time to go inside, Anik," he said, his voice carefully calm. "But the fireworks, Papa." "Now, Elsa." As he carried her down, the booms outside began to sound less like celebration and more like a barrage. Between the cracks of noise, he heard new sounds. More screams, not of joy but of terror, and a low, guttural sound that was no firework. He locked their door, the robust deadbolt his father had insisted on. Lolo Jose was already at the window, peering through a slit in the curtains. The old man's face was pale. "What is it, Tay?" Santino asked. Lolo Jose didn't turn. The neighbors, the Cruz family. They were setting off Lucy's in the street. Then, someone came from the dark. It wasn't right, son. It moved like a man but it bit old man Cruz. Like an animal. Santino's blood ran cold. His phone vibrated incessantly, the neighborhood group chat exploding with messages. May Nagwawala sa Kanto. Someone's going crazy on the corner. Huwag lumabas. Don't go out. May Nakagat na bata sa Paylink. A child was bitten at the market. And then, a video shaky filmed from a window. It showed a woman in a torn party dress, her mouth smeared with a shocking vibrant blue, tackling a man. She moved with impossible ferocity. The man screamed. The video ended. The blue. The galaxy blue. Santino's professional memory flashed. The bulk order, the stressed manager, the Chinese label, the marketing mock-up for the violet burger. Taste the future. The knot in his chest wasn't just regret anymore. It was the first stirrings of a monstrous, dawning comprehension. He had spent the day delivering joy, delivering treats, delivering the future. And now the future was at his door and it was hungry. Chapter 3, The First Dawn. The night did not end. The fireworks faded but the screams did not. The power flickered, died and did not return. In the sudden, suffocating dark of their home, the family huddled together, listening to the new language of their city. It was a grammar of chaos. Short, sharp shrieks cut through the low, constant moan of car alarms. Crashing glass. Distant, isolated gunshots, the desperate punctuation of a collapsing order. And underneath it all, a wet, guttural sound that was neither human nor animal. Santino had moved them all to the innermost room, away from windows. By the weak glow of a single solar-powered lamp, they saw each other's faces as pale, haunted masks. Lolo Jose held his Itac Biolo knife, its blade gleaming dully. I have seen trouble before. Election violence, coups. This is not that. Those things outside, they do not feel pain. Lola was praying silently, her rosary beads clicking like a tiny counterpoint to the distant carnage. Elsa was curled into Santino's side, not crying, just trembling. Her eyes were huge, absorbing the fear of the adults. What is happening, Papa? She whispered. Santino's mind, exhausted from his delivery shift, was now running on a cold, sharp adrenaline. He was mentally mapping their barangay. The two exits from their street. The Sari Sari store with the grill gate. The open canal 3 blocks over. Sickness in it, he said, the lie tasting like ash. A very bad sickness. We must be quiet and smart. His phone, now at 30%, buzzed with a flood of incoherent news alerts and panicked social media posts. Manila General. Hospital overrun. Police urges calm, shelter in place. Mass hysteria at MOA. Avoid area. Then, a forwarded message from a Grab driver group chat, a Brotherhood of the Road now reporting from the front lines. Driver Bert, Pandakan Traffic D Lang Sasakyan. Ngiatao. Pero Hindi normal. Kumagat sa windshield ko. Bughaang bibig. Traffic isn't just cars. People. But not normal. Bit my windshield. Mouth was blue. Driver May, Cubeo Nikita ko Pulis Binaural ing 4 beses sa dibdib. Tomeo parin. I saw a police officer shot 4 times in the chest. Got back up. Driver Rex, Sukit May bata akong nakitang gumapang sa kanal. Ang bilis. Parang palaka. I saw a child, crawling in the canal. So fast. Like a frog. Santino's breath caught. Canal. Fast. Like a frog. The adaptive pressure. It was already happening. The virus wasn't just reanimating, it was engineering, using the environment as a blueprint. Lolo Jose pointed his chin at Santino's phone. What do your brothers on the road say? They say the streets are death, Santino said quietly. They say, the sick are strong. And they're changing. Changing how? Before Santino could answer, a new sound erupted from the street below. Not a scream but a violent, splintering crash, followed by the frantic squeal of a pig. The Lechin vendor's stall. Elsa flinched. Lola's prayers grew louder. Santino and his father moved to the window, peering through the bamboo slats of the Persiana. Below, in the pre-dawn gloom, they saw it. The Lechin vendor, a large man named Tito Danilo, was backing away, his cleaver held high. Around his overturned stall, 3 figures moved. Their movements were jerky but disconcertingly fast. One, a woman in a tattered evening gown, had a mouth stained a brilliant, shocking blue. She was hunched over, sniffing the air like a dog. But it was the third figure that made Santino's blood freeze. It was small, a child maybe 10. It crawled not on hands and knees, but with a low, fluid, quadrupedal gait. Its clothes were soaked in the black muck of the open canal, and its skin had a weird, slick sheen. It moved along the gutter, ignoring the spilled pork, its head swiveling with a predatory focus. It was the child from Driver Rex's message. Adapted. Dios ko. Lolo Jose breathed. My God. The child thing lunged. Not at Tito Danilo but at a drainpipe. It scrambled up the rusted metal with unnatural frog-like agility, clinging to the side of a building, watching the scene from a vertical perch. Tito Danilo swung his cleaver at the woman. The blade sank into her shoulder with a thick sound. She didn't scream. She didn't even stagger. She turned her head and looked at the cleaver buried in her flesh, then looked back at Danilo and smiled, a blue horrifying rictus. She grabbed his arm and pulled him into a bite. Danilo's scream was cut short. The child on the wall tilted its head, then dropped silently back into the shadows of the alley, disappearing toward the canal. Santino pulled away from the window, his stomach heaving. He had seen the future. Adaptation. The virus was problem-solving. The canal dweller had developed grip and stealth. The bite was just the beginning. The environment was the sculptor. "We cannot stay here," Santino said, his voice hollow with certainty. "And go where?" Lola asked, fear turning to sharp practicality. "The streets are hell." "My old dispatcher, Benjo," Santino said, thinking aloud, his driver's mind clicking into route planning mode. He bought a half-finished condo in Mandaluyong after his accident. Bahay Sibyl, he called it. Strong concrete, one entrance, rooftop view. He was preparing for things. "You want us to cross the city?" Lolo Jose hissed. "With those things out there? We have my motorcycle with the sidecar. It's small, it can weave. I know the routes, the back alleys, the market shortcuts, the gaps in the fences." He met his father's eyes. "Here we are rats in a box. The noise, the smell, we will draw them. Out there moving we have a chance. For Elsa." The mention of his granddaughter sealed it. Lolo Jose nodded grimly. The plan was desperate, born in the terror of a single dawn. They would travel light. Water, the leftover pandesal, the Itac, Santino's toolkit, and the first aid supplies from Dr. A&J, the veterinarian next door they hoped was still alive. As they moved in the dark, packing silently, Santino's eyes fell on a small, forgotten object in the corner of his delivery bag. A promotional sticker, glossy and bright. It was for the Galaxy Blue Milk Tea. A cartoon galaxy swirled around a smiling, blue-lipped character. "Taste the cosmic fun." A wave of nausea, hotter and more profound than any fear, washed over him. He had delivered the cosmic fun. To the corporate office. To who knows how many other parties. The vibrant blue on the woman's mouth below, it was the same blue. The order from the shop with the delayed Chinese colorant. The next big campaign. He wasn't just a survivor. He was a relic of the old world's last stupid, greedy mistake. He had been a cog in the machine that now wanted to chew them all up. Elsa tugged his hand. "Papa, I'm ready." He crushed the sticker in his fist and shoved it deep into his pocket. A guilty, secret burden. He picked up his motorcycle helmet, the familiar weight now feeling like the only armor he had. "Stay close to me and," he said. "Do exactly as I say. We are going to Uncle Benjo's." He opened the door to their home. The familiar hallway smelled of stale smoke, spilled garbage, and a new coppery scent he couldn't place. The first dawn of the new world was a sickly gray, bleeding through the stairwell window. It did not feel like a beginning. It felt like an unveiling. Santino, the delivery driver, began his most important run. Not for a fee but for a future. His cargo was no longer food, but the last fragments of his family's life. And the map he had to follow was written in the evolving, hungry dark of a city he once knew like the back of his hand. A city that was becoming something else entirely. Chapter 4. The Road to Bahay Sibyl. The motorcycle, a trusted Honda with a welded sidecar, felt like a tin can in a hurricane. Elsa was tucked into the sidecar, swaddled in a thick jacket and helmet, clutching Lola's woven bag of supplies. Lola herself sat behind Santino, her arms a vice around his waist. Lolo Jose stood on the rear pegs, leaning against the cargo rack, his Itac in one hand, serving as their unstable, grim watchtower. Santino did not take the main roads. EDSA would be a slaughterhouse. He dove into the veins of the city, the service alleys behind restaurants, the narrow gaps between squatter shanties, the pedestrian shortcuts known only to delivery drivers and street kids. His world had shrunk to a tunnel of perception. The roar of the bike was a necessary sin, drawing attention but buying speed. Every sense was dialed to a screaming pitch. Sight, scanning for movement in doorways, on roofs, in the fetid gloom of open drains. Sound, filtering the moans, the crashes, the distant guns from the closer, more dangerous sound of skittering gravel or a wet footstep. Smell, the city's normal rot was now layered with the sweet stench of death and something else. A sharp, chemical odor like ammonia and burnt plastic, that seemed to hang around the broken windows of fast food joints. They saw the evolution piece by horrifying piece. Adaptation 1, the Pack Hunters, Makati Backstreet. Slipping past a silent bank tower, they saw a group of 5 infected surrounding a security guard's kiosk. These were not mindless. 2 fainted forward, drawing the guard's rusty fire axe, while a third, a former office worker in shredded slacks, flanked with terrifying speed, climbing a delivery truck to leap from above. Coordinated pressure. Basic tactics. The virus was learning social predation. Adaptation 2. The environmental mimics, the Pasig riverbank. Skirting the polluted river, Santino saw shapes in the water. Not floating but swimming. Or rather, lurching along the bottom, their movements slow and heavy. Their skin had taken on a gray, scaly texture, and their eyes were milky white. They didn't attack the bike, they seemed anchored to the water, waiting. Specialization. The river was now its own domain. Adaptation 3. The sensory specialists under the overpass. A dark, echoing space beneath an LRT line. Santino killed the engine, opting to push the bike through the shadows. The only light came from shattered streetlights above. They were halfway through when Lolo Jose tapped his shoulder, pointing upwards. Clinging to the steel girders above them like malignant bats, were a dozen infected. They were unnaturally still, their heads cocked. One had no eyes, just scarred-over sockets, but its ears were grotesquely enlarged, pulsing slightly. They were listening. The group froze, holding their breath. For a full minute, the only sound was the drip of water. Then a distant car alarm wailed. The eyeless one's head snapped toward the sound, and it scrambled off with its pack, moving toward the noise with chilling purpose. Adaptation to darkness. Enhanced hearing. Prey localization. They are becoming different animals, Lolo Jose whispered, the horror now etched with a scientist's dreadful awe. The final stretch to Mandaluyong was a gauntlet of fire and desperation. They passed a burning gas station, the heat blistering paint off their bike. A desperate group of survivors waved them down from a rooftop, but Santino shook his head, jaw set. Stopping was death. He saw the accusation in their eyes as he gunned the engine past. Elsa, witnessing this, began to cry silently into her helmet. The choice at the bridge. The last canal before Benjo's neighborhood was crossed by a narrow utility bridge. It was blocked. Not by cars but by people. Living people. A community had barricaded themselves behind a wall of refrigerators and shattered jeepneys. A man in a barong now stained with sweat and soot stood atop the wall, a shotgun leveled. Stop. No one crosses. You could be infected. You could lead them here. Santino cut the engine. We're clean. We're going to Bahia Sybil. Benjo's place. Benjo's dead, the man spat. Everyone over there is dead or turned. Now turn around. A lie. Or truth. Santino's heart plummeted. Was this all for nothing? Then a small, strong voice piped up from the sidecar. Elsa had lifted her visor. She looked at the tired, terrified faces behind the barricade. She reached into Lola's bag, pulled out their last bottle of water and held it up. We have water, she said, her voice clear. We can share. Please. My feet are cold. It was the wrong thing. It was the only right thing. The sheer, absurd innocence of it. A child offering a bribe of water and stating a simple human discomfort, cut through the man's panic. He lowered the shotgun a fraction. An old woman peered over the wall. Let the child pass, Rodrigo, she said. Look at her. She's no monster. The standoff hung in the balance. Then from the direction they'd come, a new sound arose. Not moans but a rhythmic, pounding thump, like many feet hitting the ground in unison. The eyeless ones from the overpass? A new variant? It was getting closer. Go! The man with the shotgun yelled, gesturing frantically. Before whatever that is gets here. Go! Santino didn't need telling twice. They pushed the bike through a hastily opened gap in the barricade. As they crossed the bridge, he tossed the bottle of water to the old woman. A fare paid for their passage. Arrival at the Crucible. Bahia Sybil was not a sanctuary. It was a fortress under silent siege. The 6-story concrete skeleton stood in a field of rubble and half-built dreams. Its ground-floor shutters were welded shut, just as Benjo had boasted. But the upper floors were dark. No sign of life. As they pulled into the shadow of the building, a figure moved on the roof. A glint of light, a mirror flash, a signal. Then a rope ladder unfurled down the side, stopping at the 3rd floor where a window gaped open like a missing tooth. A head poked out. It was Benjo alive. His face was grim, smudged with dirt, but his eyes were the same sharp, assessing eyes of the best dispatcher in Manila. Santino, he called down, voice low. You took your damn time. The freight's been waiting. The old joke, now laden with new meaning. Leave the bike. Climb. No. And for God's sake, be quiet. The street isn't empty. Santino helped his family to the ladder. As Lolo Jose began to climb, a low growl echoed from the ground floor entrance alcove. Something was in there, something that didn't like the noise. It sounded big and its growl had a wet, rasping quality Santino hadn't heard before. He urged Elsa up after her grandfather, then Lola. He was last. As his foot left the ground, he looked into the dark alcove. 2 pinpricks of reflected light stared back. They weren't the milky white of the river dwellers or the vacant glaze of the fresh infected. These glinted with a faint, sickly yellow intelligence. And they were rising from a crouch. Santino scrambled up the rope, his worn delivery driver's muscles screaming. Below, he heard a heavy, scraping body hit the welded shutter with a thud that shook the frame. Not a mindless clawing. A testing push. Then another, stronger. He pulled himself through the third-floor window, and Benjo immediately yanked the ladder up, coiling it with frantic speed. What was that? Santino panted, collapsing onto the bare concrete floor next to his shivering family. Benjo secured the window with a heavy, homemade bar before answering. He looked at Santino, then at the family, his gaze lingering on Elsa. That, he said quietly, is what we're calling the Mandarajet. The Marauder. It used to be the foreman of this construction site. Big guy. First one bitten when the trouble at the food stall happened. He's different, strong, smart. He doesn't wander. He patrols. Santino's blood went cold. Command variant. The virus had produced a leader, a territorial predator, right here at their would-be safe haven. The adaptation wasn't just about environment, it was about social structure. They were not safe. They were in the heart of a new kind of jungle, and the alpha predator was right below them. Benjo handed Santino a bottle of warm water and a strip of dried tuyo, salted fish. Welcome to Bahia Sybil, he said, a grim parody of his old welcome. The rent's cheap but the neighbors are hell. We have a lot to talk about. Starting with what you know. Benjo's eyes narrowed. Because while you were driving here I was watching from the roof. I saw a Poulahan red one, near the river burning like a torch and not dying. I saw things in the skyline moving where things shouldn't move. This isn't a sickness, Santino. This is a war. And the other side is getting smarter every hour. Santino looked at his daughter, eating her tuyo with solemn care, and then down at the floor towards the growling presence of the Mandarajet. He pulled the crumpled galaxy blue sticker from his pocket and held it out to Benjo. I know where it started, Santino said, his voice a dry rasp. And I think I helped spread it. The first night at Bahia Sybil had begun. Their shelter was also their cage and their first lesson was clear. Safety was not a place. It was a moment, fragile and fleeting, in a world actively learning how to destroy them. Happy New Year, and what do you think about the first 2 chapters of Santino and his family? Do you think that they would survive, or do you think that this is the end for them all? Until next time, see you all in the next chapter, and please comment and subscribe if you like this story.